All right, so this is It's Gov time, and this is all about the Constitutional Convention. So by 1787, most Americans wanted to change the cruddy articles and give Congress the power to tax and the power to regulate trade. So there's the articles. The Constitutional Convention opens on May 25th, 1787, with several characteristics. Meetings were held in secret so the delegates could speak without worrying what others thought. And it included all the big-time people in the colonies, except John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who were diplomats overseas. And many of the delegates, they had government experience. A lot of them had signed the Declaration of Independence. And here is some more on the Constitutional Convention. Now, they came to the Constitutional Convention to amend the Articles of Confederation, but they soon said, you know what, it's time for a new plan. It's time for a new plan of government. The first plan, the Virginia Plan, was proposed by James Madison. It gave the government the power to tax and the power to regulate trade. And it had a bicameral legislature, but representation was only based on population. There was not a house that was equal. So they gave the Virginia Plan gave the power to tax and trade. It was a bicameral legislature with both houses representation based on population. And they had one executive with a 7-year term. And here's some more about the Virginia Plan. Now, the Virginia Plan stinks to the small states because the legislature is based on population. So really, they would have no say. So the small states come up with the New Jersey Plan. And the New Jersey Plan was only intended to be modest changes to the Articles of Confederation. It was what was favored by the small states. Of course, it gave the government the power to tax and the power to regulate trade. And it called for a executive committee rather than one executive. And the whole thing with the New Jersey Plan is the legislature was based on every state being equal instead of being based on population. And if you want to know more, here's the New Jersey Plan. So obviously there's got to be a compromise here, and it's called the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise. And it gave the government the power to tax and trade, and that pretty much everybody thought that was something that they had to have. And it was a compromise between the Virginia Plan and the New Jersey Plan about representation in the legislature. It was a bicameral legislature where you had one house that was equal, that's today's U.S. Senate, and you had one house that was by population, and that's today's House of Representatives. And they had one executive. This is the plan we have today. It's called the Connecticut Compromise. If you want to know more, here you go. And if you actually want to read the Constitution, the words of the Constitution, there you go again. Now, states did not just want to give up the juice they had. So they compromised on state power by dividing government power between the federal government and the state government in the Constitution. This is called federalism. So the term of dividing power between the federal government and the state government is called federalism. Basically, states had the powers that weren't listed in the Constitution. The federal government only had the power of what was listed in the Constitution. And here's more about federalism in the United States. Now, when they decided to use population counts in the legislature, the South wants to have an equal say. And so they got to figure out how to do that. And they go, well, we got all these slaves. How do we count them as part of the population? So the compromise was called the Three-Fifths Compromise. And basically it means a slave counts as 3/5 of a person in the population counts. But that number also counts in the taxes due to the federal government. So like you have a certain amount of tax due for every person in your population of a state. And that number, that 3/5, also counts to that tax as due. And here's more about the Three-Fifths Compromise. And if you want to know more, here you go. Now, the Bill of Rights was originally omitted because if you add a Bill of Rights, how does that apply to slavery? So the Bill of Rights was originally omitted from the Constitution. And if you want to know more about the Bill of Rights and actually read the Bill of Rights, there you go.